James.
And I'm Mr. Richie.
And
we
are the Educators. Oh, and we're back. Our state is falling apart. Our nation is falling apart. It is November 12th. And we're still in our school, which is surprising.
Yeah, wow. We're there, and we're making the most of it. It's a confusing time, and funding is even disrupted. My program's funding has been completely disrupted this entire year. I still don't have funding for the extra stuff to take care of the kids at learning from home. And so it's like, everything is disrupted. Everything from just trying to calculate how to get assignments out to kids sometimes is even disrupted. But it's all because we're in the middle of this big pandemic. And right now we're looking at a pretty high weekly increase right now in Maine. In our home state of Maine, we've got a weekly increase of 1,125. Now, last week, when we did this show, it was 690, and the week before that it was 360. So we are headed in the wrong direction right now. The United States has a weekly increase of 896,670. That's up over 650,000 last week, and 3 weeks ago was 530,000. So again, that is that's an increase. And worldwide, we are on an increase, but it doesn't seem to be at the same pitch. Yeah. Like if you factor in our weekly increase of 800, basically 900,000, we seem to be the majority of the weekly increase of the world, if you look at those numbers. And that's an unfortunate situation. That is a disaster in the making right now. And Maine received the award of being the fastest transmission rate, I think, in the country. So we got that.
We used to be down the bottom, and then it's like I just feel like someone came up and said, "Hey, is it good to vacation in Maine in the fall? Let's go up there and let's spread something," because it seems so low. I mean, it's not education aside. There's certain people that just don't want to listen to putting a mask on, and they want to hug and kiss, and they want to go to eat, and they want to party and get out of my way. It's my way or the highway, but they won't take the highway, and that's what's basically it.
Yeah, they don't want disruption, and I get that. I don't want disruption either, but it's a dangerous game to play, especially when it's other lives that we're playing with. So hopefully we collectively realize that this is a bad idea. We start putting these numbers the other way, but how about let's talk about something else?
Yeah, anything else. So this is going to be a pretty big episode for us. It's not going to be super long. So don't stop watching or listening now, or though most of you can just look at how much is left and you say, oh, it's not going to be the longest episode ever. But we're going to be taking two things that you think are separate and showing how they intertwine and where that sort of disconnect happened and why they can still coexist, and also explaining how we might view something and how we've talked about things in the past. But before that, we're gonna do a little science in the news. All right. First thing, giant lasers. Who doesn't like that? Giant lasers help recreate supernovas, explosive, mysterious physics.
Very interesting. I always have to look into these. It just seems like it's two separate sciences almost at first, and it's like, all right, well, how do they get data for something as massive as a supernova through a laboratory experiment? But first glance, it does look like it's the hot, high pressure kind of physics that they assume happen inside of a supernova, which is very important stuff to look at, and very precise, very high precision kind of stuff. So I'm always amazed that we can even study this stuff because of what it takes to even do this.
I mean, then they say our sun in 5 billion, 8 billion years is going to go supernova. and basically on its way to exploding or imploding or something like that, dying out basically, and basically leaving our entire galaxy, or the Milky, not the Milky Way, or maybe it's the Milky Way. Our solar system, because there's multiple solar systems in our galaxy. It's basically taking our solar system out. If we lose our star,
at least the inner part of it.
Yeah.
The inner part of it, because there'll still be a remnant. Because so what will happen is the sun, as it spends all of its fuel becomes denser because it's turning hydrogen into, everything from helium, lithium, oxygen.
Yeah, bigger elements.
Always squeezing it down. And in our sun, though, isn't even big enough to supernova. It's only going to nova. And so nova is a smaller scale, common star type of explosion. It's the death of the star, but it's the beginning of a whole other chain of events. But when it does that, it's gonna swell. So the star will start to turn into a red giant, and it will overtake the orbit of Mercury and swallow Mercury, and then will overtake Venus, and overtake Venus and swallow Venus, and then it's going to overtake us. And it's like, that's the border. It's like the math sometimes points that it's going to swallow us. Sometimes, obviously, either way, it's going to be bad news if we're, closer to the surface of a star. And so, it's a real thing, and we can tell that because we can analyze the amount of hydrogen and helium inside of a star, and then use math to figure out how long that's going to burn. And we can look at the life span of other stars in our galaxy with telescopes and compare it. So it is very important stuff that really does get really good answers when we study it.
Yeah, and I like that. I think it's interesting. Anything we do with anything that our math is putting experiments together on Earth to explain something that we cannot be anywhere near or just are speculating about, because we've basically studied things that measured stuff, and we said, we know this is probably happening, but let's see if we can actually get something in front of us using our technology. And I would like that can happen.
The alternative is just theoretical physics, which, people are uncomfortable with, how does this math actually explain something that really happens? Okay, well, here's a physical experiment that people are doing to do that, here on Earth. And so it's the alternative is just reading the math or trying stuff like this. And I think
blowing things up. Always got to blow.
It's great to have both. Yeah.
So next one is pretty interesting, because this is, I think I've been seeing articles about this all over the internet for actually years, talking about the brain gut sort of like communication, and how your gut is basically determines your health and everything like that. So make sure your gut is in good health. But this is protecting the brain from infection may start with a gut reaction. And one of the big things being the brain is very susceptible to viruses and infections and such. And this is definitely something you don't want to happen, anything like that to happen to your brain in the first place. You've got a few little membranes in there called the meninges that can help protect it. And the gut seems to be this first line of defense before it goes up, before anything might travel to your brain, and actually can help to fight off these viruses or infections and such. Of course, if it's healthy. And this is why, I think people have been going crazy over probiotics. Probiotics, this, that. And it's, they're even mentioning it for COVID-19. Probiotics would be great. That and vitamin D. And take this and that and try that. But I mean, it's just one of those things. If you, simple as digesting food and getting better nutrients from your body, having a good digestive system. It isn't, if that's a mess, why are you even eating food? Really? You're not even, if you can't get the nutrients out of it, it's like a bird swallowing rocks. Birds eat rocks to push out their nutrients so they can actually go to the bathroom and such. And it's just like we're eating rocks if we can't digest our food. It's horrible.
Yeah. I think that sometimes these, the probiotics have a really good rap because they temporarily solve a problem that's been around for a while, and like they can relieve symptoms, and it certainly helps sometimes to have active, consume active bacteria in a certain amount, and certain strains, certain types have way different different effects and stuff like that. And so it's not just anything. You just don't buy something with a probiotic on it, trust it all the time. But that stuff. So and in this study it says, a study in mice found that immune cells are first trained in the gut to recognize and launch attacks on pathogens, and then they kind of float or migrate in the bloodstream up to the brain. So they're first activated in the gut and then flow up into the brain, and the brain can't react to something that it doesn't know about. So until it receives that information by the immune cells, then it can't do anything about it. So there is a physical connection, they're saying, in between like having solid, good performing gut, and being able to recognize and launch attacks on pathogens.
I mean, it makes sense that if you have a stomach issue of some sort, thinking about anything, doing anything, it's kind of useless. The brain fog, all of this stuff, it's such a bad thing. And I mean, me knowing this, I've had years being like that and trying to figure out what do I need to go on for a diet? What do I need to change? What's going on like that? And feeling great for the past, few years. The way I eat, the way I do everything is just working perfectly, and not demanding supplements or needing to have anything like that. It's great. I mean, just the normal things that someone might take for inflammation because they exercise on a daily basis. And I think hopefully that's helping. I tell everybody, it's not about finding the one thing to fix yourself. It's this journey that you're constantly going to be ebb and flow. You're going to have some days you feel good. Some days you are like, I'm a little bit tired. And that's kind of why we have these to measure our sleep, which is really important, and things like that. So you can say, wait a minute, this doesn't say it's normal. Why is this not normal? I'm not in this range. What happened? I need to get myself back into that range, because anytime you're out of the, not the normal range, what is it? Like, what can we do to fix that? Because you kind of want to be in this good range. You want to live as long as you possibly can, if not indefinitely. And I mean, I tried plugging my head into the computer. I don't know where the USB port is.
The protocols don't match. You can't. Yeah, it doesn't. That's the only problem. Like, we could find a way to connect it in there. It's just like the communication protocols wouldn't line up, and it wouldn't work out.
I wouldn't want to plug it into this old computer, though. I want something a little bit newer, kind of like Xbox X style. Yeah.
Yeah.
So next item, we'll get through these quickly. Coronavirus cases are skyrocketing. That's not news, but they said, here's what it will take to gain control. And I only want to put that down because it's the same thing we've told everybody, right? Wear a mask, social distancing.
Yeah.
Like literally washing hands, keep your distance from everybody. Don't touch your face. They said basically we can get a hold of this if everyone listened, but it's not uniform.
If everybody just knew, all right, now's not the time for me to go and I don't know, what's something like go inside of get a tattoo, go and do any of these like, things. I understand like freedom and all that stuff, but like doing this is what is causing it to last so long and be so bad. And as much as I would like to go and pop into like a bike shop and have a conversation with the guy and, talk about something, or, go over to, I don't know, like a meet for hobbyists, like for drone enthusiasts, and communicate with them. Like, we had this great, it almost felt like a trade show, last year, when the first year I was a teacher, where we went over to a different school and, got to be inside with hundreds of educators and all these vendors and things like that. And like, people are still trying to do these things. Like, we wouldn't need a lockdown if we just all knew not to do these things. Like, I want to do them too, but I don't need to do them that bad. And we should all really, really think about how we can limit our exposure to other people and protect ourselves, because it's crazy. But yeah,
don't be the
they
kissy
are
huggy types.
What's that?
Don't be the kissy huggy types.
Yeah.
Those are you plus. I must hug you. I must. No, you don't. No, I get it.
Yeah.
You're an extrovert. Okay. Good luck with your life.
Yeah, like right now.
Introverts are like, we're good. We're
Yeah.
great. We're good at we're getting our energy back by ourselves, and we're trying to solve the world's problems digitally and virtually. So.
But one of the other things that they mentioned in that article is testing and tracing. And right now, I think that we're having an issue with tracing because people don't want to give up information. And it's like, we're not asking for a bunch of personal details, but this is really important stuff to know.
Who have you talked to?
What restaurants have you been in? Like, these people deserve a fair warning. And so good thing to keep in mind.
Last item is with Theta, which is the most recent storm. 2020 sets the record for the most named Atlantic storms. It's been a stormy year.
Luckily it hasn't been like major devastating storms like in recent history type, but still for that area I just don't understand how collectively the people haven't built dome houses for everybody that can withstand these.
Oh yeah.
I understand the economics of a lot of that area, the Cuba, Haiti and all that, but like, wow, how could you live there with such a year like this? It's like, I feel like I want to go down and teach people how to build dome houses, secure, anchor them in, that way we can survive these things as communities. But wow.
Yeah.
What a year.
It's bad. And that's why,
I would say it's almost like the predictions for climate change are coming true.
Yeah.
Strangely enough.
Yeah. And that's why we talk about science, everybody. It's why we talk about science, because this is where science got us. But we're also talking today, and I mentioned it at the previous podcast you've listened to or watched, science and religion. And this is not science versus religion, which so many have to talk about. It's always going to be at odds, and they're always going to throw both things being a methodology, a philosophy, a way of life that they don't intersect. And we're here to say, guess what? They do. And they have all throughout history. And we will be putting things up in the show notes so you can have your look at the many different scientists that have been religious and have been open about that, and yet have become pioneers in fields that we basically are on the backs of their work today. So,
absolutely.
So one of the big things I do want to start off is I could list all these scientists. The first thing I did in talking about this, and we mentioned this in different podcasts, we always were mentioning, when we mention somebody who has beliefs, and we say someone's beliefs are keeping somebody from following the science, following the protocol, the process of science. Their beliefs are stopping them from going down that path of discovery, of realizing, finding maybe new data and realizing something that they originally thought wasn't correct, and changing their mind in the way they think about something based upon new evidence. And we're saying there are some people that will just say, no, I know what I know is right. That's it. Nothing's going to sway me, and I'm not going to go look into that. And that's the poison basically of the world.
I think we talked about that a bunch in the last episode about like this new sort of philosophy of just only focusing on what you want out of the world and thinking that the universe will conform to you. Like, that's sort of like any sort of thing where you're getting into this funnel vision and excluding things and not able to have take an objective evidence. I think that's when you're running close to being illogical, which is, not going to help anybody in this complex world.
Yeah, and it's not going to, and it honestly, it gives anyone who follows anything that may be similar to what someone calls a belief system, it gives them a bad rap. It gives them, because there are lists out there. And if I look down one of them, the first one mentions, and I just want to just mention the top, it says, this is from Wikipedia, but it was a list of Christians in science and technology. And it says people in this list would have their Christianity as irrelevant to their notable activities or public life, and who publicly identified themselves as Christian or as a Christian denomination. And we have a list all the way from Hildegard from Bingen, can't barely say that, but that's at 1098. Basically considered to be, she is considered to be the founder of scientific natural history in Germany, all the way through William Turner, you might have heard of him, father of English botany, Francis Bacon, Galileo, which you'll be talking about a little bit later, Pascal, Isaac Barrow, Isaac Newton, Kepler. These are big names that we keep coming back to, and yet they all had religious views. Einstein, they all had these views that, even though they were trying to figure out something about existence, that they always held this sort of, you could call it a pie in the sky hope that there was some meaning to everything.
A lot of people used to gaze out into the heavens looking for heaven.
Yeah.
Hence calling it
the
heaven.
The ether.
Yeah, they're looking for evidence of this thing that they believe in, which I think is a pretty honorable trait for people to do. A lot of the early astronomers were all very religious, and they had this belief that we'll talk about in a little while as well, but that they were just, they weren't in contrast to their beliefs. They were finding evidence of their beliefs, and that was something that for a lot of them made them probably a little bit more pious.
Yeah. Well, the thing, I feel it was like that they set this level where, like, there's nothing going to be higher than me figuring out existence, why we're here. And that to me is the God. That'd be the ultimate. So I'm going to try everything I can to figure out to get towards that. Now, I'm still going to have that. They're still going to have that belief, but they're going to have to keep working towards that. And they're going to work day and night and literally their entire lives dedicated to scientific rigor of just, I have to study this. I have to know how all these things work, but I also want to make sure anyone after me knows that I was methodical about how I went to do it. And that's the scientific process, so that it can be replicated, so that nobody has to backpedal to make up for any mistakes I made. Absolutely. And we have to move forward as humanity, and each previous generation is going to help the next generation. So that's basically the whole idea behind it, is that they're all to help. Everybody's trying to help. And I mean, that's kind of one of the biggest religious tenets there is, right? Help fellow mankind.
Yeah, and a big part of church that a lot of people miss out on, without having it, is this like community help sort of thing. Like they'll help you get through tough parts of your life. They'll be there for you to talk to. All that. There's a whole other part, but it's all dependent on religious thinking. And they'll have to really follow these certain tenets and stuff like that. And unfortunately, in the secular world, there isn't much of a comparison, except for often religious charities or things like that, for people that run out of luck. They need some help, a little lift up. And there's not really any secular versions right now of these charities that will educate or help, and even provide like financial advice, stuff like that happens inside of a church that draws people in as well. And so it makes sense why a lot of people really hold on to it without really ultra focusing on the actual ideas that you have to believe in order to really accept that. And there's a lot of things that we could talk about, but really the idea, right, is about being rational, making rational thoughts, things that can be tested and
Yeah.
that can be objective. I think that's where we can all,
We need to understand our world. We need to understand our world. And I mentioned the list of like I mentioned the Christians. I have an just as large one of this was says list of scientists in medieval Islamic world.
Yeah.
So Muslims that basically pioneer psychotherapy, music therapy. A person named Al-Kindi, and that's from 801 to 873. I mean, there's such a huge list that unfortunately I can't pronounce a lot of the names to give them justice, but
yeah,
the entire world,
yeah.
the entire world is filled and has been filled with people who have definitely helped humanity, have pushed us forward. We have benefited from their thoughts, and yet they held on to their religious beliefs. So this should very clear up for everybody that these two things can exist together and they're not at odds. One does not make you disclaim the other. Even though I've seen those that are extremist on either side disclaiming the other and basically saying, well, so the person is a neuroscientist and they do and they write these papers, these journals, but they also are Catholic and they go to church. Well, they're an idiot. I'm gonna disown them, whatever. No, they're doing all this work, legitimate scientific work. Yeah, but they have this irrational thing of this, and it just disclaims them. On the other side, I've known somebody who I was watching, and this has really happened to me. I invited a family over to a house I had years ago, and I was watching a PBS documentary on the person who discovered fractals. So in nature, these shapes that are like these geometric repeating shapes, and how they did this, and how amazing, if you zoom in on nature, there's these like structures that are just like unbelievable. And the person was like, spent their entire life doing this. And I mentioned to this person who came to my house, I said, I was watching this video, and he goes, my religion tells me everything I need to know. That guy wasted their life. What an idiot. And I was like, I can't believe someone just said that. Wow.
That's unfortunate. Yeah. It's like, that sort of, those walls, like that's an unbreakable wall. You can't find common ground with that.
Yeah.
Like that's a real, like of all things, it's mathematical. It's provable. Like if you try to think of what's the, there's a vegetable that's like similar to a broccoli, like, or cauliflower, but it's a fractal. And
I've seen that before. I've seen that.
Yeah. And I want to get it because it really does happen, like this repeating shape. And that's unfortunate that just that, of all things that PBS, could have been talking about, it's this mathematical thing that's like, yeah, of course it happens like that. And, like leaves, and I think are sometimes an example of something like that. But
it was just the way the person said, I don't need to know about your science or discovery, because my beliefs have put a wall up from anything that anyone else has done. And my automatic response is, they wasted their life. That was a waste of time. That was unfruitful. And yet so much of science has come out of this person's, basically this person studying fractals has ushered in so many different things in science and our understanding of how even our body works because of that. And yet, no, they're not important. Yeah. And that's the thing. I will never disown or basically toss out another human being's efforts and work if it was in an objective, rational way that was fruitful to the rest of humanity. I would not say, you wasted your life, you're useless. That's the worst thing to do.
It's so bad. But it's really unfortunate too, because I don't understand that opinion if, if you believe in a higher power that created this that we're in, what's wrong with studying it?
Yeah, I
And
know.
learning from, I don't get where the friction is.
Where someone would say, like, we'll just accept it. Just accept everything.
Yeah.
And whatever, things are going to happen. Accept it. Don't ask questions and die and then go on to something better.
Yep.
It doesn't work. It's not working that way, right? We need to help people. People are still suffering. The world, your body is being attacked by these unknowns, these invisible things, COVID-19, all this stuff. We're figuring this thing out. I mean,
yeah,
nobody has the answer to any of this stuff. Nobody has the answer to life. So that's why we move forward together, working and helping each other and learning from each other. And our best process for doing that, science.
That's right.
It's like,
it really is.
It's like, and yeah, you can be you can be religious, and you can love science. But
Of course.
You have some stories to tell us about throughout history. It's come to bite some people. Basically, they face similar issues of having certain beliefs and yet certain practices that, when put up in front of more judgmental people, didn't look so good on their behalf.
Yeah, so like lately in the modern world right now, a lot of religious people feel that their religions have come under attack by science, because a lot of their, a lot of the findings of science exploration has been, contrary to some of like their texts that they, cling to. And that's been happening since they've been written, really. I mean, like, like the idea that we shouldn't, consume pigs or something like that, well, eventually it became our culture that we just sort of, I grew up in a Christian household, but we still had pork chops, and like we still went to work on Sundays sometime, and so we've been slowly drifting from that. And a lot of people think that that maybe their religions are under attack right now, and they think it might be unfounded. But one of the issues that has been in the past is that science, it used to be completely flipped around, where science was dictated by religion, and it really impacted a lot of people, but it impacted a lot of progress too. And one story, that sticks out is a story of a guy named Giordano Bruno, and he, if I remember correctly, he was sort of religious, upbringing. Of course, everyone was, in Europe at the time. And sometime in his adulthood, he came up with these theories. He studied, astronomy and math, and he proposed the idea that stars were distant suns versus whatever everyone else was thinking at the time, and that they might be then in turn surrounded by their own planets. And then, if there's other planets around other stars, then why couldn't there be life on those planets?
Mm-hmm.
And, it did run into an issue with the religion at the time. And so it became an issue known as cosmic pluralism. There's only supposed to be one firmament, one place where life and humans are. And so as a result, it ended up becoming an issue that he happened to live during the Roman Inquisition.
Yeah.
And so in the late 1500s, and so he got charged, for several crimes. And, the Catholic Church, found him guilty. And so he was burned at the stake. And so that was in 1600. And then he gained fame after that, because his story is just an example of some of the pressure that was put on astronomy, of all things, back in the day. And Galileo came along after that, only 15 years after Bruno's death. Galileo was investigated by the Roman Inquisition in 1615, because he came up with a crazy idea that the sun was the center of the solar system.
Yeah, and there's mentioned a thing about that, like Copernicus, who predates even Bruno by Yeah, about thinking about that. Copernicus was 1473 to 1543.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And so Galileo's was a big fan of heliocentrism, which is that the sun is the middle of the solar system, and of course there was an issue with that, and
yeah,
so he had a better outcome. I'm not sure why. It must be like just his place, in society there, but he was forced to recant, and I think that was the issue.
yeah,
He recanted, and so as a result, he was sent under house arrest to live the rest of his life in house arrest. Whereas Bruno refused to recant,
yeah.
and even was given one last chance before they lit the match that set him on fire. But like he refused, and that was the difference, I think. But basically, even after Galileo was in house arrest, he ended up publishing like basically all the work that he had done for the last 40 years. So it actually gave him one last chance to really focus on his work and publish another book, which I thought was a really cool way to stick it to the man. But
Yeah.
so I mean, they're just a couple of examples, high profile examples of when science has been subdued or silenced due to friction with a society that is not secular, that it's focused on a religion, and that's why we have to make science and religion work together, because we're not going to have a society that's 100% all about science and no religion.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some out there, but this society that we live in isn't going to end up like that overnight, or in our lifetime. And it's ridiculous to try to aim for that aspiration. We just got to make it work together. And same with the other side. Like, there's no way that we could exist in this modern world without science. And the only way for us to progress as a species is through science. We don't need to revert and forget all this stuff and have to start over somewhere, other time, because of repression. So no matter what, we got to find a way to make this work together.
I was thinking it's funny where it's like there might be maybe a nation that is really concerned with their culture, really concerned with their religious values, and going about their traditions and their and whatever they do to maintain their lives and stuff like that, and the way they want to follow. And then they see on a TV another nation going to the moon or something, and they go, "What? We can do that." And then all of a sudden, there's this like ramping up of the science and all of this stuff to get to make it so they can actually do that, have the technology to do that. And it's a competitive thing, but at the same time, at the end of the day, it looks like everybody will follow a scientific method. I mean, this is what we're doing with our daily life anyways, but it just looks like this objective, science, basically, these objective processes are what, at the end of the day, everyone comes back to doing. It's like we mentioned before in another episode, we talked about the homeopathy practitioner who gets sick and then goes to Western medicine and basically gets a prescription for like a penicillin or something, because they're like, well, this works. You go, well, what about the stuff that you would promote? And I go, well, I don't. I'll see you later. So it's like when all stuff hits the fan, when it all comes down, it comes to the science that it's going to have to work, and we should never back down from that. You can have these inner beliefs, which is this holding on to a hope that there is this meaning that you want to have in the universe, in life, but yet you're going to work tirelessly to understand your environment, understand your world, and benefit from new evidence about how it works. I mean, right? We want to live longer. It should be an automatic thing. We keep coming back to this. You want to live longer. Yes, you do.
Well, that's I think where we could find neutral ground is that, whatever religion you have, science is just explaining the universe that your creator created.
Yeah.
And so it should never be, an issue, maybe not never, but, general science and study, should basically just be part of appreciating what has been created for you, right? And that's really what I feel like we should arrive at.
Yeah.
And I think, like you were saying, you were given a brain, right?
Yeah, use it to its fullest potential. I mean, that's when, and I keep thinking back to that person I invited to my house who was like, yeah, that person wasted their life studying this thing that's useless. And you're like, no, that person used their brain and they're using it to its fullest potential. And when you disclaim and discredit what they did for something that is a wall you put up for any evidence that you get thrown, you just like, I'm putting this wall up. I don't want your evidence and your science explanation, stuff like that. No, I don't believe it. I'm just going to say this so I can look good and not have to get into discussion that I feel I won't be able to match wits with. Basically, it's basically someone saying, I'm not as smart as you, so I'm going to take an easy out and use a logical fallacy. And you're like, yeah, I'm sorry. That's not do that. We have a brain. We need to use our brain. We need to help humanity. If you want to know why life has meaning, look for it. And the best way to look for it is to figure out this world. And guess what? Other people behind you in the past have been looking for it. Figure out what they took for notes, right? Study something.
Yeah.
What absolutely. Did they put? They have notes. Read their notes.
Stand on their the shoulders of people before us. And
find out what you can for yourself. Be another pioneer. Like you have the light in the dark, and see what you can find and help someone else. Put your stuff down in notes. Have others read what you write and critique it and see if they come up with the same conclusions and if they find the same thing. And if a lot of people find the same thing, maybe you can write it down and give it to a greater whole, and maybe a whole society will believe what you have seen or have basically tried to experimented on. Hey, that's called science. It keeps going back to this process.
Yeah.
Called science.
Process of studying the world around us.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that should be a universal trait that we all have. If you, whether you believe it's created for you or, just here when you came to life, either way, it's something to be explored and understood. And I don't think there's any benefit ever of shying away from understanding the environment around you. I think it's a very natural, very human, very logical thing for any species to do.
When I see young children, because we teach young children, and their quest for knowledge and just like their fascination of things in the world, and you want to show them like this is how the world works. This is real life. This is real. And wow, I can't believe that. That's real. Like, yes. And then, you have the great predicament of being able to show them the universe and galaxies and planets and talk about the great unknown. And
I could, but it's not in my lesson plan and curriculum this year.
Yeah, I know. It's just too bad because it's like you can be like, this is amazing. We're on a rock floating in the middle of nothing and part of the solar system, but like space is a vacuum, and this is so complicated and so weird, and yet
I do get it in there when I can. I do, I throw out there that we live on a rock floating in space, just these things, because as soon as it lands in my curriculum that I can teach aerospace or earth and space science, and I can't wait for that day.
I know, and it's just, that's the thing is I want to help children to understand how things work, even from my level of playing music. So you guys can see the guitars and the piano, whatever. But at that level, the science of all of this, why it's like that. Why do you like sounds? Why do sounds exist? Why does this instrument sound different than the other one? Why does your voice sound different?
Why should you play an instrument? Like how can you express yourself through an instrument? And it's like that was something that I never understood until it happened, you know, and like that's an important thing to learn. That's a good positive way to relieve stress and tension in the world, and you know,
and that can give you meaning.
Something nice.
That can give you meaning, and sometimes meanings, you don't have to explain meanings. You might not know you might not know how to explain it in any other way than to have someone sit down and have you play something and an instrument or whatever, and then they just can understand. Or you're someone who designs things or some visual art, or you have a certain thing you do. Maybe you have a Zen garden that you make or something like that, or you make things. I know somebody made fishing tackle, and they would wind things up, and they had so many of them, and I don't think they could give enough away because they just made it. And it was their way of just like finding some meaning in doing these tiny little tasks, these manual little tasks of making this, and their things were beautiful. I don't know if they catch fish, maybe not, but it was something.
Sounds like tying flies.
Yeah, gave them meaning. So I was like, there's nothing wrong with that at all. People are all looking for meaning, and that's where kind of religion came from. Everybody wants to have meaning. Now science has given us a way towards that meaning, and that's why they both go hand in hand. It's not one versus the other. It's these bad raps of these inquisitions and those that are super extremists on either side that are pushing and pulling those to go from one side and basically think of the others. It's putting people in a box. It's being biased. It's prejudice. It's the same thing we're fighting about in the US all the time, you know, and hopefully now, because we have a new president, right? We last episode, we didn't know what we'd have. I think we have a new
president-elect. Yeah.
I think, yeah. So we'll see what happens with that, but hopefully things are going to be getting a little bit different around the US. I mean, at least the news is going to be different. Maybe Twitter is going to be a little bit different.
Maybe, yeah, we'll see. There's going to be a transition period that'll be
interesting, and it's such a mess. But hopefully we didn't do this subject bad by anyone's standards. We're never stepping on anybody here. We're here. Everyone's here to learn. We're educators. We educate. We talk about ideas because big minds talk about ideas. Small minds talk about people. Right?
Right.
I don't know who wrote that. I remember seeing that before. But that's
is big mind like great minds think about.
Yeah, I can look it up.
Ideas. So minds talk about things, and not so great minds talk about people. Something like that.
Yeah, great minds.
It's attributed to many different people, but
there it is. Yeah, great minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. Small minds discuss people.
Yeah.
Which absolutely makes sense. So don't fall into the trap of drama, of anything like that. There's big ideas out there, and there's big ideas that someone has discovered and come up with, and they're waiting for you to read their book because no one has been pursuing what they were pursuing, and maybe that's going to be the next key to our understanding of the meaning of anything.
It always has been, standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah. So hope that wraps up our episode, because we're ready for more things, and ready for another day of school tomorrow.
That's right. One more.
All right. Well, I'm Mr. James.
I'm Mr. Richie.
And we are the educators. We'll see you later.